If Harry Potter took place in the United States, what part of the story would be different? Harry wouldn't even be called Harry. That's too British. Probably be like Hank Rogers. Hagrid would be the football coach and constantly be telling kids they're in need of a serious attitude adjustment. He would be going after something called a sorcerer's stone because nobody knows what the philosopher's stone is. Oh, wait. Hey, least we had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The Brits got Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles because ninjas were too violent. They'd have a new sport they call Quidditch, but is nothing like what the rest of the world know as Quidditch. If I remember correctly from the books, the most popular wizard sport in America is called Quadpert, which has rules loosely similar to Quidditch, but involves explosions. Instead of owls they would use bald eagles. And they'd use magic to make them sound like red-tailed hawks. Sorting hat. Well, if you're sure, better be Costco. Cheers from House Costco table. More than likely the train station would be a Greyhound bus stop, and instead of running through a magic pillar you'd have to fight off an army of 2 AM cokeheads to get into the custodian's closet. Came here to say that platform 9, 3/4 would be at Nickport Authority, and that somebody walking around talking to themselves would see Harry go through the wall, try it himself, and discover that he's not just a wino, he is a magical wino. Given that a wizard probably dies to a shotgun, Voldemort's reign is hilariously brief. Even in the original books this always baffled me. Just set up a sniper like 1000 featuring away and get someone to distract Voldemort for like 5 minutes. Shouting spells is great except it gives him the chance to block it. By the time you hear a gunshot it's already too late. The American flag would be shown frequently. And the winner of the House Cup is Gryffindor America. Proceeds to show American flags as patriotic music plays. Someone drives around in a pickup truck. I think there can't be just one school in the USA, so schools would be recruiting. Schools would prioritize some divination to choose the best students and send letters appropriately. You don't want random wizardy people wandering about, so the school probably has to send one to everyone in their area. There wouldn't really be conflict between houses in the school, as only some schools use the house system, but more conflict between the schools. I'd expect those schools to trace their magic and traditions back to their colonists. There would be some first American schools, perhaps out in the Pacific Northwest, a French school around New Orleans, a Spanish-Mexican school around Santa Fe and the Painted Desert, a Chinese school in the San Francisco area, an English school around New York, and something around Chicago. Children from Hawaii could go to one of the mainland schools or are often offered a place at Mohatakoro. There wouldn't be enough of them to really move away from the boarding school approach, and you don't really want too much study or practice outside the protective bounds of the school. There would be a test at the end of every year, and a much longer Quidditch season, though it may or may not really look like the Quidditch we know. There's a Parker King Kong style high ropes obstacle ultimate frisbee game. To get there your parents could drive you, or they'd send a bus to a plane or train. Wizards tend to hold onto things longer, and the trains were probably set up with them in mind. Why pay to switch to planes when the train works just fine? I wanna take the wizard train from Hawaii to the mainland. Basically gonna be magic school bus. The school is too poor to afford a building, so it's just inside of a bus. The dining hall would be a food court and there would be vending machines scattered around the campus. Weekly wizard wheezes would be endorsed by famous female wizards as a weightless miracle, Harry probably wouldn't have to go back to the Dursleys in the summer, since there'd probably be wizard summer camps of some sort. The political commentary on surrounding characters like Umbridge and Fudge would be different, since they are largely inspired by British political dowchery from the 2000s and earlier, which is a bit different to US political dowchery. There'd probably be some kind of cheerleading group for Quidditch. IDK about UK politicians, but as someone from a post-communist country, it scares me how close Umbridge is written to a high-ranking Communist Party member. Instead of wizard chess they have enchanted beer pong cups that spew fire, hands that appear from the lid, jets of butterbeer that shoot up like fountain all to block the ball from going in. Also they'll probably have magical lockers around the hallway with charms to provide what you need, like a smaller room of requirement or something. The Death Eaters are just emo kids with AK-47s. The last 5 books would just be about Harry trying to pay off the bills from that time he had to have his bones regrown. Harry Potter and the deathly medical bills. American flags would be everywhere, and the Wheeleyes would be rednecks. There would be one scene dedicated in each movie to the school doing disaster drills. Quite honestly, with all the crap that went down at Hogwarts, a few disaster drills might have been helpful. Any spells to heal Hogwarts students would be charged to their parents. Man, that school would be shut down in no time with all the lawsuits. The fights have more explosions. Ron says frick, and most importantly Harry was killed by Voldemort, who used an AK-47 instead of a stick. Harry drops out of Hogwarts after his first year. Medical bills from the Sorcerer's Stone incident have used up his entire family fortune, and he now is unable to pay tuition without taking out a massive loan. He moves back in with the Dursleys and has entrepreneur listed as his occupation on LinkedIn. And his Tinder. No houses. Probably not a boarding school. Years would be separated between a 3-year middle school and a 4-year high school, as opposed to Howls and Newts. Headmaster would be called a principal, but a beer would be banned before age 21. No school uniforms are all obvious examples. Speaking of owls and newts, standardized testing would be twice a year, and the practical portion would be removed. Diagon Alley would probably just be a strip mall. There would, rightfully, be a bigger issue with the idea of house elves. Yeah, in the US version they'd also be black. The UK has racism, but it disguises it with classism. You'll just have racism, so the house elves would be black. Also, you'd have to tip the owls. Neville Longbottom snaps, brings an AR-15 to class, and starts gunning down House Slytherin, starting with Draco Malfoy. I feel like that's a YouTube vid waiting to happen. It would be all over in book 1 because a group of students did a Mass Avada Kedavra on a school day. Mass Avada Kedavra sounds like a good band name. Hogwarts wouldn't be a boarding school. Harry wouldn't get his year-long breaks from his abusive family. He'd come to class with a distant, uninterested gaze on his face, and poorly kept robes. His teachers would notice, of course, but this is America, so they'd have 40 or more kids per class and no time or ability to take a special interest in just Harry. People would notice the sadness, they'd notice the uncleanness and wild hair, they'd notice the bruises and that Harry's glasses are constantly re-breaking. But this is America. Nobody would want to say anything. The other boys might call Harry a coward or a homo. Naturally, girls would talk about what a creepy mess he was. The school nurse would probably become Harry's most nourishing and rewarding relationship. Somehow, by any random turn of events, the US president played by Billy Bob Thornton would be in danger, and Harry will spend 8 films trying to save him from communists, radical religious groups from a made-up country ending in Stan, hypocrite gun control people carrying guns, and Russians Iranians. Snape is actually just Hans Gruber. Instead of the Book of Monsters, it would be a book of different gangs, where to find them, what colors to wear, and what signs they flash. More guns, a lot more guns. There will be magic detectors at the entrance of the school so kids cannot bring in dangerous magic items or muggle electronics. One of said dangerous items is their own wands, since they can be used to do any kind of lethal spell if the student chose to. So instead of spell classes with practical experience using their wands, they just use fake plastic wands to practice spells, and the professor marks them based on how they flicked and waved theirs in class, as well as the spell pronunciation. Potions class has Professor Heisenberg. Some of the lab supplies have been missing each year, and he keeps blaming the losses on the domestic elves that help inside the school. He supposedly has a brother-in-law that works as an aura. There is also a rumor that an older Hufflepuff kid is selling Smarten Up potions on the side for when the exams roll around, which are pretty hard to do for a student, let alone a Hufflepuff. The current defense against the dark arts teacher is Mark Hamill. Besides counterspells and basic fencing lessons, he has redoubtable experience fighting the dark side. From time to time he lets out a chilling clown laugh when teaching his classes if some student makes a good joke, but it's nothing to worry about. Anything related to Quidditch training and broom flight is handled by Professor Vin Diesel. He teaches the kids how to drift correctly in their brooms, how to race trains and planes, how to customize and fix their brooms, and how to add a bit of nitro juice potion to their brooms for extra speed. Care of magical creatures is imparted by the groundskeeper, Dwayne Johnson. He has talent to befriend magical beasts and a very docile personality for his size. It is rumored he has giant blood in him. You better not cause any trouble at school, especially for the headmaster, or the rock is given name by his giant mother, might escort you out of the school grounds through the nearest window in the building. The Dursleys might been given a religious bent to further justify their fear of magic and to give some perspective on their overall unpleasant behavior, which plenty of American children could relate to. Maybe, but if the American realize aren't in some kind of big family religion, I'll eat my hat. Only people with lots of gold could go to Hogwarts. Magical Congress-backed student loans. They would take a BuzzFeed quiz instead of using the sorting hat. Hogwarts was located in the Scottish Highlands, so very out of the way. American Hogwarts would probably be in a remote part of America, like Wyoming. American Diagon Alley would be located in New York City. My guess would be somewhere in Midtown, where everyone's too distracted to notice people going into an invisible building. That's the American equivalent of the Leaky Cauldron. 12 Grimmauld Place would also be a hidden brownstone in Brooklyn. The students still take trains, but it's Grand Central Station. There are fairy tales in the Muggle world that find their root in the WW. I'd imagine a lot of American authors were either wizards or had relatives who were, thus exposing them. For example, Stephen King is a wizard whose Muggle disguise is an author, using some of the stuff in his world for his stories. His book It is based on a boggart that King encountered in a sewer grate in Maine. The paintings are just live advertisements that try to convince you to buy fast food and iPads. The flying car. It wouldn't be that little Ford Anglia, it'd be a flying Ford F250 Platinum FX4 Power Stroke. Axiogat cast Harry, as the dragon roared its rage upon once again missing its target, somewhere deep in Chicagoland, in the area commonly referred to on the street as Lil B. A small black submachine gun flew out of an already broken window and streaked into the sky, accelerating through the sound barrier, the boom of its speed echoing across the city like just one more gunshot. Meanwhile, Harry ducked behind another rock as the dragon snapped at him once again. Harry felt its breath on the back of his neck and immediately ducked and rolled as it spat fire at him. In cover for a moment, he once again held his wand out high in his left hand. A sonic boom announced the arrival of his secret weapon. Harry just needed the right target now. The dragon's underbelly had the softest scales. He reached under his robes and pulled out the floppy, vinyl body of Ron's deflated freak doll. "Sorry, Ron," he whispered, as he cast a quick incantation to inflate what Ron referred to as Dirty Gertie. Somewhere up in the audience, he could hear Draco Malfoy snickering, but he didn't care. He had a dragon to kill. Harry touched his wand to the unfortunate doll and incanted, Wingardium Leviosa, rocketing the doll upwards rapidly. He heard the dragon move, and that was his cue. "You like shooting fire, you scaled frick. How about you taste my fire?" shouted Harry as he stood up, wand in his left hand and Mac 10 in his right. His trigger finger tightened, and the audience was deafened as 30 rounds of 9mm ammunition was emptied into the dragon's soft underbelly in under 2 seconds. Firing with one hand doesn't lend itself much to accuracy, but luck was on his side as a round struck true and destroyed the dragon's heart, and it died before its head struck the hard stone. The stadium fell strangely quiet, apart from the sobs of one Rubus Hagrid, and Harry risked a glance up at Draco. The boy was whiter than usual, and Harry smirked at him as he blew across the still smoking barrel. The message was clear: frick with me, and you're next. There would be a lot more Voldemorts. Before Quidditch matches start, a bunch of fighter jets would fly over the pitch. Avada Kedavra would not be an unforgivable curse because it is somehow protected by both First and Second Amendments. After all, the only thing that stops bad guy with an Avada Kedavra is a good guy with an Avada Kedavra. Sorting Hat will be substituted by Kiersey for optimal corporate wizardry. There would be elevators in Hogwarts cause ain't no Americans wanna climb all them dang stairs. Obesity. The moving staircases are actually just escalators. Malfoy would eventually run for president and win BC Trust Fund baby. There would only be one book because a bunch of rednecks would find the school and burn it down in the 5th chapter. At some point in the movies, Ron would have said, "Hold my beer, watch this." You have been visited by the romantic doggo. Comment love is magic so you never fall in the friend zone. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.